Donald Trump has called for the arrest of a governor and a mayor. Here it is.
This morning, the build-up. National Guard troops from Texas now on the ground just outside Chicago. Part of a mobilization ordered by President Trump, the state's governor has denounced as an unconstitutional invasion.
If you look at Chicago, Chicago's a great city where there's a lot of crime. And if the governor can't do the job, we'll do the job.
Chicago's Democratic Mayor Brandon Johnson condemned what he called the president's war on his city.
This is about authoritarianism. It's about stoking fear.
With the courts so far blocking the president's efforts to deploy troops to Democratic-led cities, President Trump is now threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act to send those troops in to crack down on unrest without states' approval.
And moments ago, President Trump weighed in again and is trying to ratchet things up rather than calm things down. Again, sending out this message, we'll show you. Chicago's mayor should be in jail for failing to protect ICE officers. Governor Pritzker also.
Here we go. Republicans used to tell us they believed in less government intrusion from the federal government. Local government should have their capacity, their self-determination intact, their will to govern themselves not hindered. Donald Trump has violated virtually all of the go-to Republican talking points. Your talking points about morality and ethics, that's out the door. Your talking points about traditional family, completely gone, this guy. Why? Because presidents are typically considered the standard bearer of the political party they represent. But because Trump cannot bear the standard has no effect, nor is it even pronounced during campaigns by Republicans. So they continue to go to talking points that are lies and about other people. So Donald Trump has now decided to engage in the thing we said he wanted to do on day one. And to the Democratic politicians, stop using the word authoritarianism. Okay, it's too diplomatic for what's really happening. This is criminal. This is a crime. If something is unconstitutional, that means it's against the law. That means it is a violation of legal standard. So let's stop using this damn SAT word and get into the root of what this man is doing. He's literally transforming our system of government by illegal means. See, you can say it. Put it up full mask. President Donald Trump has called for the imprisonment of Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. As the pair, they fight ICE federal agents and the National Guard from another state deployed basically in Chicago. On Wednesday, Trump said Chicago mayor should be jailed for failing to protect ICE officers. Governor Pritzker also, keep their pictures up. First of all, the Supreme Court ruled that police officers who are sworn to protect and serve the citizens, they do not have a duty to actually protect and serve, meaning if they fail to protect and serve, they cannot be arrested for failing to protect and serve you. That's a Supreme Court ruling. It's considered case law. However, Donald Trump wants your elected representatives jailed for not protecting armed cops. They're the police. Why does a politician have to protect the police? And the legal scrutiny of their arrival, notwithstanding, they shouldn't even be there. But Trump wants you to know that he cares about these ICE agents so much that he's calling for the arrest of elected representatives who don't protect them during his illegal orders inside of your state. Put them back up. I talked about this prior. When the mayor of Chicago last week sent out an executive action from the mayor's desk that created a no ICE zone. I explained to the indisputable audience that it has no effect because it's not a local statute. It is not signed by members of council. It did not pass as a statute, because if it passes as a law, as a statute, that means they have to enforce it. The governor, as he waxed poetic about ICE doing what ICE was doing, I reminded the governor he has the authority in his state for state troopers to arrest federal agents. That is simply case law once again. And if you want to verify, you can look at Red Dog Police in Atlanta arresting federal agents. Georgia state troopers have done so as well. Pritzker would respond by posting, quote, "I would not back down. Trump is now calling for the arrest of elected representatives, checking his power. What else is left on the path of full-blown authoritarianism?" Please stop using the damn word. Sir, a man in actual power as president of the United States of America has called for your arrest for doing your job. These sanitized words and these measured responses from Democratic elected officials, even when they are on the line. This man is threatening to take you away from your family, from your children, from your friends, from your neighbors. Johnson would also respond, quote, "This is not the first time Trump has tried to have a black man unjustly arrested. I'm not going anywhere." And that's a great point, Mr. Mayor. You have a police force under you, one of the largest police forces in the United States of America, the Chicago PD. They also, based on precedent of the United States Supreme Court, they can, in fact, arrest anyone who is unlawfully within that jurisdiction performing something that is statutorily illegal. Trump's post came 2 days after both Chicago and Illinois sued the White House in a bid to block the deployment of federal troops. The complaint was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois against Trump and several other federal agencies and officials, including the Department of Homeland Security. Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem, the Department of Defense, and the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Despite the lawsuit, National Guard troops from Texas have started to lay down roots at an Army Reserve Center in Illinois early Wednesday, the Associated Press reported. Their exact mission is unclear, though the Trump administration has an aggressive immigration enforcement operation in the nation's third largest city, and protesters have frequently rallied at an immigration building outside of Chicago in Broadview. So Trump has threatened to invoke something called the Insurrection Act. We're going to talk about that. The federal law dating back to 1807. That should give you an idea of how antiquated this law is. If courts or state officials delay his plans to deploy soldiers to U.S. cities in support of his anti-immigration crackdown, the Insurrection Act is a federal law that gives the U.S. president the power to deploy the military or to federalize the National Guard anywhere in the U.S. to restore order during an insurrection. The National Guard is technically a branch of the U.S. military that helps with both state and federal tasks. States mostly use their National Guard for emergencies, but the president can also send Guard troops on missions abroad. It is typically the governor of a state who can deploy National Guard troops in the respective state. The Insurrection Act was signed into law in 1807 by then President Thomas Jefferson. However, it can be traced back to the Militia Acts in 1792. Two of these acts which defined the president's power to call militias into federal service during emergencies. Okay? The Insurrection Act works in tandem with the Posse Comitatus Act in 1878, which prevents the president from invoking the National Guard. The president can then circumvent this act by invoking the Insurrection Act in the event of an insurrection. Constitutional lawyer Bruce Fain told Al Jazeera that presidential powers under the act only apply in cases of major rebellion equivalent to the U.S. Civil War, where normal law enforcement and courts can't function. Sir, I appreciate your legal scholarship, but that's not true. The reason it's not true is because we've allowed it to be so damn subjective rather than defined. However, the law scholar added that it is unclear whether a president's declaration of insurrection can even be challenged in court. Quote, Congress, however, could impeach and remove Trump for misuse of the act in Portland. Fain said, adding that military law obligates personnel to disobey orders that are clearly unlawful. He said Trump's use of the act in Portland would be clearly illegal, even if it cannot be challenged in court. Sir, once again, all due respect to your legal scholarship, it is clearly illegal to violate the rights of citizens. It is clearly illegal to arrest a federal judge while on the bench for informing someone of their constitutional rights. It is clearly illegal to go inside of churches and school zones and arrest children. It is clearly illegal. But happening. The first time Trump deployed the National Guard was in June. When he deployed 2,000 National Guard troops in Los Angeles and California, this was in response to protests in California against ICE arresting people for violating immigration laws in the city. California Governor Gavin Newsom did not agree with Trump's National Guard deployment in his state back then. Hence, instead of the Insurrection Act, which would have required Newsom's approval, Trump invoked a similar federal law called the Title X authority to deploy the California National Guard without Newsom's approval. In August, he deployed 800 Guard members to Washington, D.C., citing a crime emergency and saying violent crime was out of control. On Saturday, Trump authorized the deployment of 300 National Guard troops to Chicago, where citizens are protesting against an ICE immigration crackdown. On Monday, Illinois leaders moved to take legal action against Trump over the deployment. The state and the city filed a lawsuit in the U.S. District Court, Northern District of Illinois, Eastern Division. Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker, Illinois, said a court hearing is scheduled for Thursday. Right now, you have some fighters on the field, okay? You may not like the way they fight, but it's unorthodox because it's required, and I can appreciate the fight, even if I have not always agreed with their policies. I appreciate Governor Newsom. I appreciate Pritzker, Johnson, and others who are willing to stand up to this level of insanity. But it also takes us supporting them as they stand up. It takes us being willing to support the representatives who support our continued advocacy for self-determination and government. And finally, Mayor Johnson had these words to say about Trump's effort.
First of all, this president is unstable, unhinged, a double-minded individual that quite frankly is a threat to our democracy. If he was serious about safety, he would not have defunded a program of $800 million that was geared towards violence prevention. He cut the ATF budget by 30%. He has defunded our education system. He has defunded our transportation system. He is firing Black women across this country. He's defunding our healthcare system. This president is absolutely out of control, and it's incumbent upon all of us. If there was ever a time for working people to unite in this country, now is that time. And the city of Chicago is going to stand firm in protecting humanity and protecting and defending our democracy.